Ye have heard that it hath been said, An eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. How many Christians are there worse than Jews, who carry their revenge to the utmost extremity, and return even more evil than they have received? There is a great deal of difference between what the law appointed to the Jews for the public safety, and what charity requires of us for our particular perfection, between the duty of a judge who ought to punish according to the law, and the tempter of a Christian who ought to pardon according to the gospel. But I say unto you, that ye resisteth not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. Patience and true Christian charity incline a man to quit, to do, to give, and to suffer all things. First, in his person, all sorts of affronts, at least in the disposition of mind. We are allowed to demand justice, but never to avenge ourselves, never to desire punishment for itself, but either for the public good or for the welfare of private persons. Christian patience and evangelical prudence must concur to regulate the use of this counsel, for it is not always expedient to do that publicly which it is always necessary to dispose to do at the bottom of the heart. We ought to take care not to deprive ourselves of this blessing by too much reasoning, or by the delusion of self-love. And if any man will sue thee at the law, and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. Patience and Christian charity would have us be in the same disposition in relation to our goods. It is a gain to lose them, rather than the treasure of charity and peace. These words contain only matter of advice, but the foundation of this advice, namely, the having a mind averse to law, and the preferring peace and Christian concord to temporal advantage, this is a precept. We are great gainers when we lose only our money, because we will not run the risk of losing our souls by losing charity. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. Lastly, patience and Christian charity would have us to be disposed to suffer in our bodies all sorts of toils, vexations, and torments, that we may be martyrs of charity and peace. Jesus Christ went beyond this advice when, without being in the least constrained thereto, he suffered himself to be set on a pinnacle of the temple, and taken up into the mountain by the devil, and to be led to the top of Calvary by the Jews. Few persons are exposed to these kinds of vexations, but all are exposed to suffer injustice. If we always believe that our sufferings are less than we deserve in the sight of God, we need never feed our being mistaken, or doing any injustice to ourselves. The way to improve the injustice of men to our own advantage is to suffer their violence with a view to the justice of God. Give to him what asketh thee, and from him that would borrow of thee turn not thou away. To give and to lend freely to all who are in need is a general precept, from which we are not excused, but our inability to perform it. Men are more or less obliged to it, as they are more or less able, as the want is more or less pressing, as they are more or less burdened with poor, or by their office as pastors, or by the necessities of their relations, or by the opportunities and demands of providence, or by the duty of restitution and satisfaction. In this matter we must consult prudence, and more, charity. He who makes use of the beggar's hand to ask our charity is the same of him who we ourselves beg every day our bread, and dare we refuse him? Let us show at least mildness and compassion when we can do no more. To give and to lend are two duties of charity, which Christ joins together, and which he sets upon an equal footing. The loan is sometimes more beneficial than the absolute gift, because it flatters less the vanity and natural generosity of him who lends. It spares more the shame of him who is in real want, and gives less encouragement to the idleness of him who may not be very honest.